Welcome to Season 2 of the Age of Motocross, and I'm your host, Jim Chamberlain. Today's episode is all about the tracks of the Maritimes, the loam, the sand, the rocky tracks, the double jumps, the triple jumps, the tabletops. Everything you can imagine in motocross is available here in the Maritimes. Sit back, listen to the sound of the rumble of the four-stroke and the high-pitched whine of the incredible two-strokes while I take you on a tour of maritime motocross. And don't forget, let's pin it. Welcome to the Age of Motocross, Season 2, Episode 2. And in tonight's episode, we're going to have a real good look at race number 2. We're going to look at power band. I'm not talking about an elastic. I'm talking about how your bike runs. Then we're going to have a look at track owners. Who are the track owners? How do they keep our sport going? Damon Strang is one of the big owners in the region. He actually owns Port Elgin. We can't forget the riders. We have Damon Burbine. We have Brad Lockhart, two of the big riders in the region. Brad is a champion at the pro level, and Damon is a champion, Canadian champion, on the little bikes. And then we are back to school, Chain Lube 101. And we have a new little segment called Words to Live By. Stick around, we'll see you in a few minutes. What do you do when you're coming into that corner real hot? There's a guy in your tail or you're trying to catch somebody. Do you shift down? Do you upshift? Do you leave it in the same gear? These are all things that you can decide what to do if you have a thorough knowledge of how your bike runs. And where do you get that thorough knowledge? Practice, practice, practice. And what do I mean by where your power is in your bike? All bikes have what they call power band. It's not something you can buy at Walmart or at your local dealer. It's where the meat of your horsepower is within your engine. Now, different bikes, two-strokes particular, have a narrower, very peaky power band. So it requires that the rider, be on his toes, as they say, closer to the clutch, moving quickly in order to keep the meat of the power band activated, ready to go when you have all that power. If you're down too low of a gear, you come into a corner, you're actually above your power band, so when you exit, you're not coming out with the full horsepower that you think you are. Your engine is screaming. It sounds like you're going fast, but in fact, you're out of your power band and the horsepower drops off rather quickly. You're going to keep going most definitely, but you're not edging it with the right type of power. Now, if you upshift and you're in too high of a gear, and you're not prepared for this, when you exit the corner, you're below your power band, and in fact, you will slow down considerably because there's much less horsepower way down low in your RPM. Where do you need to be? You need to be right in the middle, hand on the clutch, ready to keep the power band at the RPM range that you need it. That comes with practice and practice. Getting to see where your bike's power band is, getting to understand what the corner feels like. You may need to slip the clutch, as they say, just to get that RPM up a little bit more. Maybe you ride in a higher gear. If you learn to ride corners in a slightly higher gear with your hand on the clutch, feathering it, getting the RPMs up into the meat of the power band, you will exit the corner faster. This is something that comes with one thing. Say it here with me. Practice, practice, practice. Motocross is often a family sport, and so is the building of motocross tracks. We're here with Devin Strang, and he is one of the owners here of Strang's Motocross. Devin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Devin, how long has this track been in existence?
We've had this track open for around 8 years now. It first got started when we were younger kids. We kind of talked our father into building us a track so we didn't have to travel for practice, because we were about an hour away from Moncton, and they only held practice once a week up there. So that's how it all began down here.
So Devin, you were a racer once upon a time?
Yeah, I raced for 14 years of my life, made it up to the pro ranks, and then stopped while I went to university, and haven't got a bike and gotten back into it yet, but looking at getting around to it here pretty soon now that I've graduated from school.
Your brother still races?
My brother still races pro, yeah, in the region. He won the championship last year, so he hasn't raced yet this year. He's having a little bike issues, and he's starting school as well, but he's still racing.
So tell me, probably the groundwork in building the track. Now, to get a track up to this standard, it probably took you a long while. You just don't build this overnight, do you?
Yeah, we had a smaller track just on the lane coming in here, and we were just lucky that we own a potato farm, so we had a lot of the equipment that you would need. But for somebody to start a track, it would take several years, 4 or 5 years. To get on the circuit for CMRC, what we're doing here, you need to do a 2-year probation period and running fun races that are sanctioned, just so you know all the proper groundwork and the paperwork and everything, so that you can run a successful race. And then the region lets you in if you run 2 successful events on 2 consecutive years.
So tell me, when does your morning start on race day for you?
The morning will start around 6 a.m. People start coming in. We get a lot of the stuff done the day before on Saturday, and we do pre-registration on Saturday night. So mostly all the watering is done on Saturday as well. So started around 6 in the morning. Rogers meeting starts at 8 in the morning, so everybody has to be signed up and ready to go pretty much for 8 in the morning.
And what time do you get to bed at night?
Well, we should be finishing the day up here around supper time, so we'll save a lot of the cleanup for tomorrow and kind of just relax tonight after we get done.
Devin Strang with Motocross in Port Elgin. In order to get fast, you have to start at a very young age, and we have probably one of the best riders in the Atlantic region who graces the Atlantic region and the Atlantic circuits. This is Damon Burbine, and he's with us here today and competing here at Port Elgin. Tell me a little bit about your racing career. I understand you have a little championship that kind of is prestigious.
I won in Walton, the biggest race in Canada, and I started racing when I was 5, so for 6 years, and right now I'm at Port Elgin.
You're at Port Elgin. So tell me about racing in Walton. I know that's a national championship. What was it like to get on the line with the fastest guys in Canada?
It felt great.
Yeah. Did you know you had a chance to win when you were there? Did you feel you had the speed to do what was necessary?
Yeah, I did.
So this year I noticed you're on a little bit of a bigger bike. How was the adjustment going from your little 65 to a bigger 85?
It was better because it has more speed and I like more speed, so.
Not like me, I like it to be a little bit slower. So tell me about what your goals are for your 85. Do you see yourself competing at the national level this year? Right away you're going to go to the nationals?
Yeah, we're going to Walton again, and I'm going to try to win on the 60, and then I'm going to try to win on the 80 also.
So let's say we turn professional. What's our goals? Do you see yourself in the American circuit, or do you want to compete in this great circuit that we have now in Canada?
American.
You go down to the American for the what? The money, right?
Yeah.
All the money and the prestige. Apparently there's lots of girls too. Is that true?
I don't know.
So this is Mr. Burbine, and he is 65 champion, Canadian national champion at that, and he's trying to make a title here with his 85. Anne Murray's not the only thing that comes from Spring Hill. We have one of the Lockhart family. We have the youngest. This is Brad Lockhart. Brad, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Brad, tell me a little bit about your racing career. I know there's a number of series this summer you plan on attending. Now, one of them is that Quebec Arena Cross. What's that one all about?
Basically, I'm from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia. I've been racing for about 18 years now, since I was 3 years old.
Okay.
So, yeah, and the Quebec Arena Cross, basically, it is your hockey rink that you play hockey in the winter. We race in it in the summer, and it's a lot of fun, and we get a lot of good guys from all over the world, and I'm hoping to do really good in that series this year. It's been going well so far.
I understand you're in the top 5 so far, some third place finishes, and doing quite well up there. Now, in your off time, you're going to race the CMRC Atlantic Series. What's your goal for this series?
Obviously my goal is always top 3, but I'd like to sneak in some wins. I've taken a couple years off from the Atlantic region. I've yet to get that first pro win. I've had lots of top 3s and stuff, but this year I think it's my time to get that first win.
Now the Arena Cross series in Quebec, is this something new, or has Arena Cross been going on for a while?
Yeah, no, it's been going for a long time. The one race we do, it's actually been, this year was the 35th anniversary, so it's been going for a really long time. This is a semi-new series. It's been going on for about 5 years, but there's always been the Arena Cross here and there, but now we actually have a full series, and I'm really excited about it.
Okay, great. Do you see the possibility of an Arena Cross series taking place in Atlantic Canada rather than Quebec, or do you think maybe this is just something that's going to prosper in the Quebec area?
I'd really like to see it, but it's tough with the cost and the amount of riders we have here. They have a lot more in Quebec, and a lot of the guys around here they got a little scared away from the Arena Crosses because there's been some injuries and stuff when we've had them in the past. But in my opinion, they're a lot more, not a lot more safer, they're a little more technical, but if you know what you're doing, it's a lot more safer. You're in first and second gear, other than when you're out here, you're in fourth to fifth gear. So
I've always thought it was a safer sport. As an amateur, I enjoyed going to the Arena Crosses. I wish I would get more track time on the Arena Cross. Everything's so short, though. So you've been racing for 18 years. Any highlights, any big events that you took place in or took part in the last few years?
Well, I've won lots of Atlantic region championships as an amateur, and in 2013, I took the year off. My parents said I had to go get a job, so I went out west and worked. And my dad, he just loves it so much. He's like, we got to get you back here. We got to get back racing. And last year, I was racing the Quebec series, and there was a three-way tie for the lead in the series. And I ended up going up to do one of their outdoor races, and I injured my wrist really bad. So I was hoping to get the win there last year, but we're gonna go for it this year, and hopefully it works out.
As you can see, we certainly have some very dedicated and fast riders in the region. Mr. Burbine now is a two-time Canadian champion. He won the 65cc championship this summer again at the Walton Nationals. And Brad Lockhart certainly has the speed to be one of the fastest pros, certainly in this region, if not in Canada. One of the things about Brad, when he's on the track with me, I get to see his back tire at the start line, and that's it. Usually he's in the pits, he has his boots off, and he's drinking a nice cold water. Then I arrive in the pits. But that's the price you have to pay when you're lagging at the back. When we come back, we're going to look at an art form on how we take care of our bike. And we call that Chain Lube 101. Welcome back. The most abused part of your motorcycle. We overlook it, we don't touch it, yet it gives us the drive we need to get out of the corners, to get over the jumps, our chain. What do we need to know about chain lubing? I'll tell you what it is. Chain Lube 101. An often neglected part of the motorcycle, unfortunately I see a lot of young kids neglecting, is the chain. The chain is what gets your horsepower to the ground. If the chain is not in good shape, if you're not keeping it well lubricated, if you're not cleaning it on a regular basis, if you're not checking its tension on a regular basis, you're in big trouble. Just this past weekend, I was at a race where I saw two kids on the starting line where their chain literally broke off. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for that, but I think if I went back and examined their chain a little more closely, I could see there's a little bit of chain neglect or chain abuse. Now let me show you what you should be doing on a regular basis. Now I've washed all my bike and I'd like to go riding this afternoon, but before I do go riding, let's pretend we are at the conclusion of a wash. So I've washed my bike. For the most part, all the mud is not, and the grease and grit is not going to come off the chain just with a car wash. Maybe pressure wash might do it, but a regular car wash won't. So may I suggest you get yourself just a metal brush. What you scrape your house with if you're painting your house again. They're not very expensive. There's all sorts of varieties. So I'm just going to get down and I'm going to try it from the other side. It's probably a better way. simply hold my brush on the side of the chain. I can actually, if I want to do a rubbing motion like this, I certainly can. And I'm trying to clean as much of the grit off the chain as I possibly can. Some people like to hold it in place like this, doing the same thing. Obviously, rubbing is the best way to get it done. It takes a little bit of time, but you want your chain to have a nice life. Certainly scrape it, give it a good back massage here. So I'm getting all the last bit of grit. Now remember, if you've used a car wash or if you use some type of washing mechanism, it's always a good idea to do this rather quickly so that moisture leaves the chain. Now one of the things that they have now, they recommend using WD-40. WD-40 is not a lubricant. What WD-40 does is disperses water. So if you're using WD-40 after you clean your chain, or after you wash your bike, excuse me, then use the WD-40 to get the moisture out of the inner workings of the chain. So I'm going to change locations a little bit. Put it over here. Get as much as I can off. Okay, so I've cleaned the chain quite thoroughly. I'm going to check for tension. They say 2 to 3 fingers is what you should be looking at. I have roughly 3 fingers. For me, that's where I like to keep my chain. Read your owner's manual again, a really good book to read. It's not something that you should neglect, as I say all the time. So it's not bad. I like it about that tension. Some people might be a little bit tighter, but you have to be worried about getting it too tight. You do not want your chain tight. So at this point, there's a number of different products that you can get. And one of the things that I found in the last couple of years is a chain cleaner. Now you'll notice I spread some rags over the garage here so I don't dirty the garage floor. And I spray this cleaning compound on the chain. And what it does is it gets into the nooks and crannies and it gets rid of the gritty oil and the material that causes a chain to shorten its lifespan. Now read carefully, check your latest motorcycle magazines as to if this is a product you spotted on the shelf. Go do some research on the product, see what the professionals are saying, but I found a number of good products that is a chain cleaner. So I'm giving it a few seconds to sort of drip off, and it's getting a lot of the gook and the garbage off. And then the other thing that we need to be looking at is getting a good quality chain lube. Now what chain lube has, there's a number of different types of chain lube that you could get. Look around again. Read the manual about chain lube. They might have a recommendation, but read the motorcycle magazines. They've tested everything. There's tests on everything from engine oil to chain lube to new transmission fluids. So please check motorcycle magazines and see what they have to say. So what are we going to do with the chain lube? The chain lube, one of the best ways to do it, going back to this side of the bike, is to do it on the inside or the top side of the chain. What do I mean by that? Is inside of here. So after a few seconds of letting this chemical dry, I'm simply going to squirt it in this area right here. This is where I'm going to squirt it. And at that point, it's staying on the inside and is not flinging off. So I will simply hold the can here, then I will spin the tire, and it gets on the inside of the chain and allows the working mechanism of the oil, of the stickiness of the oil, to stay inside the chain, and it lubricates all the little bearings or the little bushings that are inside the chain. Do this as often as you can. Between motos, scrape your chain. Lube your chain as often as you can, and your chain will love you for it. That's chain lubing 101. Rest assured that I will be by your pits next summer to have a look at the condition of your chain. I hope you're lubricating it, because that's the difference between first and an also-ran. When we come back, words to live by. I consider motocross more than just a sport. It is, in fact, is a sport that has taught me so much about life. This next segment we call Words to Live By. Let me throw a line out to you. I will always get what I always got if I always do what I always did. Let me repeat that. I will always get what I always got if I always do what I always did. What does that mean? It simply means that unless you're willing to tackle a problem, look at it square on, and look for ways around, above, below, and through it, we're not going anywhere. Motocross taught me that. If I'm having trouble with a certain section in track, I can come back. I can point fingers at somebody around and say, the track's too gnarly, it's too tough for me. I can point fingers at my dad saying you don't have the suspension set up, or my mom because something's not right, or my mechanic, or whomever it may be. Or I can say, how am I going to overcome that obstacle? I can constantly complain about it, or I can work on it. Motocross taught me to do that, and I took that skill into life. Work on an obstacle that stands in front of you. Work until you can be successful in overcoming it. So is that double jump you can't take? So what do? Well, obviously at the beginning you don't take the double jump. Then you slowly work on where you need to be in the corner before to get the right possible speed. Then you fly up to the double jump and you hesitate. Well, that's probably pretty normal, but you're working through the problem. Put that into real life. Work through the problem. Motocross allowed me to put that into real life. So when I have an obstacle in front of me, I look at it as a challenge. Motocross taught me that life can be a challenge. How are you going to face it head on? Again, are you pointing fingers at people and saying, you know what, it's your fault? Or are you saying, you know what, I'm going to take that challenge head on and I'm going to find a way to overcome the obstacle? Now, what do you do at 50 years of age when there's a double jump in front of you in motocross? Well, at some point I have to say, no, I'm not prepared to do that. But what if I want to be successful? How do I overcome that obstacle of people doing things that I can't do? I have to problem solve. And I problem solve by looking at other places on the track where I can get faster. I'm constantly thinking of ways to improve my riding ability. You would think at 38 years of riding, being in your 50s, that you would have everything solved the way it could be. Motocross has taught me that you can always learn something new. So I'm not going to give up trying to get faster. Am I going to be the next Ricky Carmichael or Jeremy McGrath? Of course not. I'm in my 50s, I'm at the late twilight of my career, but by constantly working on improving what I can do, no matter how many times I do it, I keep trying to get faster. Transfer that to life. Transfer that to the obstacles you face in life and say, like on my bike, I am going to work through it, around it, over it, but I'm not going to let that obstacle stand in my way. You will always get what you always got. I can't do it if you don't try something different. If you always do what you always did. I'm going to change. I'm going to try a different gear on my bike. I'm going to try a seating position further at the back. And put that into life. I'm not going to allow a job setback, a failure of a grade in school, a low mark on a test. I'm going to figure out what I need to do to improve, what I can do to get better. I'm going to study more. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to drive more efficiently, and I'm going to be a better motocrosser and a better individual. And that was Words to Live By. That's our episode for tonight. And I am your host, Jim Chamberlain. And don't forget, in the world of motocross, there's only one position: pin it.